Hello guys, my name's Aiden, and finally, after 10 years of suffering, I got revenge on my school bully. Some people think I went too far with my revenge, but after what he did to me, he deserved it. Ever since I was a kid, I had a hard time finding friends because I had social anxiety. Everybody noticed that I'm shy and made fun of me. But this one kid in particular was just evil. His name was Logan. His father was funding the school, so he always felt privileged. He would act out in front of teachers. He felt like he owned everything in the school. And he made every day a living hell. During class, I would sit in the back and doodle in my notebook, creating these crazy fantasy characters, and he would just take my notebook and point out that I looked like one of those dwarfs I was drawing. Because of my love for fantasy, he would call me names like Goblin or Dwarf. I had no idea why he was so mean to me. But eventually, I found one person that seemed to get me. He was an IT teacher. When we started going to IT class, I got interested in programming. So he would let me spend school breaks in his class in front of the computer. And I felt safe being there. But my happiness didn't last for long. One time during the class when I was in the toilet, Logan came up to my computer and deleted my project. I came back, saw that, and started crying. And of course, Logan laughed his ass off. The teacher took my side and told him that he was getting detention for what he did. He got so angry. He started ranting, "Do you even know who I am?" You know, all this my rich daddy talk. And I felt so happy because finally someone stood up to him. But the next day, I came into the class and I saw the teacher's things missing. Another teacher came and told us that our IT teacher had to take a leave of absence. Logan turned to me and smiled. It was his fault. He was making my life miserable, and he took the only good thing from me. My emotions got the better of me. I came up to him, holding my fist, ready for a fight. "Careful, Goblin, I can throw you out too," he said while smiling. And the worst thing is, I knew he could. I cried for the whole evening. Honestly, I felt powerless. Anytime I'd find something that made me happy, he had to take it from me. The only good thing was that there were only a couple of months until graduation, and I got into a college that was far away from there. And I knew that little brat didn't get in. With his grades, even his father couldn't bribe him into college. And that felt like a win. When I got to college, I decided to just focus on school and stop being the weird kid. But I didn't follow my plan. I remember I was unpacking my stuff in my new room and I found my old notebooks there. I started turning page after page, discovering this fantasy world that I nearly gave up on, and then this idea hit me. I was studying programming and I had these drawings. All I needed was to combine them. I started developing a video game and working on it like crazy. I worked days and nights, filling myself with coffee and excitement. After a couple of months, the trial version was done. I uploaded it onto the internet and just hoped that somebody would see it. At first, it didn't draw any attention, and I almost forgot about it when I heard somebody in my class talking about it. I rushed to my computer, checked, and saw that it had blown up. It had like 10,000 downloads. I couldn't believe it. And pretty soon, my life changed for good. I was sitting in my room working when I got a call from one tech company saying that they'd like to talk with me about investing. I set up a meeting and hung up, scared, was shocked. Is this really happening? I was only 18 and already making a name for myself. I went to the meeting, anxious. I was scared that when they'd see me, they wouldn't want to invest in my game. But as soon as they asked me about my full vision for the game, I felt my passion overcome my anxiety, and I started telling them all my ideas. They actually seemed interested, and at the end of the meeting, they told me that they're going to give me enough money to fully implement them. The first couple of months, it was only me and a couple of my colleagues working from home. Then, it expanded. I rented an office and hired a whole team. I felt at the top of my game when I saw this ghost from my past. We were hiring illustrators and had them coming up for interviews. A couple of other shareholders and I were sitting in the meeting room talking with potential illustrators one by one. I was getting tired, but my assistant said that there's one more waiting in the hall. My colleague told me that his old friend asked him to get his son an interview. The doors opened and I saw Logan. I couldn't believe it. It was him. But of course, who else would use his father's influence for a job? He came into the meeting room all confident and arrogant, but then suddenly our eyes met. I saw a life flashing before his eyes. Then he quickly turned his eyes away and started shaking hands with everybody like he didn't see me. When he came up to me, he introduced himself. "And your name is?" he asked me. There was no way he didn't remember me. He was really getting on my nerves, but I didn't want to look unprofessional and cause a scene. So all of us sat down. My colleagues asked him a couple of warm-up questions. They all laughed. I was getting more and more furious. Then he showed his works. To my surprise, they were really good. Logan was actually winning my colleagues over. I found myself in the most difficult situation. He was the best candidate, but I couldn't imagine working with him in the same room. When the job interview was over, I volunteered to show him his way out of our office so I could talk to him in private. "Look," I told him, "you can stop acting now. I will give you this job, but I'd like you to apologize for everything I went through, you know? This is all I ask." I thought maybe finally I could move on from my past experiences. He looked straight into my eyes, and my heart nearly dropped. I couldn't believe that he will finally own up to it. Then he laughingly said, "What do you mean? We were just kids teasing each other, and you have to admit you were a real dork." My blood started boiling. Here I was, trying to be the bigger man, and he was disrespecting me all over again. "So, see you next week?" he asked. I couldn't let him treat me this way anymore. "Remember how you called me a goblin?" I replied. "Well, the goblin is a mischievous and malicious creature by definition. You'll soon find out what I mean." He scoffed and left the building. Soon enough, I had this award ceremony coming where most of the industry's top people would gather. Our game was getting an award, and I had to go on stage to make a big speech. I was preparing the speech for the whole month, but as soon as I walked on stage, I knew that I had to change it. I told them my story, about my drawings, about Logan's horrible bullying, and about me. Finally getting recognition and meeting him in an interview. I made sure everybody knew what I went through and knew who was responsible. After a couple of days, I met my ex-classmate and he told me that Logan is in deep debt and has a hard time finding a job. I know what I did might seem petty, but somebody had to do it. Some guys always feel like they have the privilege to make other people's lives miserable without consequences. And this was my story to tell. I finally feel free. It feels like it's only the beginning of my amazing story. I'm working on the 3rd edition, and the whole franchise is estimated to be worth around $1 million. I could have never imagined that my dreams would get me this far. I wish I could go back to 10-year-old me and tell him to stop being ashamed of being different. Because you only need one person to believe in you, and that is yourself.